Good morning from Arthur Investigations. It is Friday, July 11th, I think. And we're still working, even though it's Friday afternoon. We never stop around here at Arthur Investigations. We're working on the case of Miss R. We'll just call her Miss R because this is confidential at this stage. But we're working on the case of Miss R in video because I just met with a fellow named John McLeod. He said, nobody reads anymore, do everything on video. So that's why we're doing this on video. How do I explain to Miss R and anybody else who's watching this just how bad the civil law system is? I could tell you how bad it is, and you still won't believe me. When I was a lawyer, I would try to give people as much of an impression as I could about the brokenness and the awfulness of the system, and they would always kind of leave my office thinking about maybe half of what I said at most was true. Okay, so the best reference, the best scholarly reference that Miss R and everybody who's interested needs to see is a film called Aguirre der Zorn Gottes by Werner Herzog. He was the guy who played the guy, he was in the opening of The Mandalorian. He was in the opening episode of that. But anyway, he's a movie director, and he made this movie about Spanish conquistadores going into the Amazon rainforest looking for El Dorado. And this is them when they started. This is Aguirre when he starts out. Okay, and then this is Aguirre looking for El Dorado. Spoiler alert, he never finds El Dorado. Okay.
Ich bin sicher, Aguirre führt uns ins Verderben. Ich habe fast den Eindruck, tut es mit.
And then this is Aguirre never finding El Dorado. This is how the movie ends. Okay?
Ich, der Zorn Gottes, werde meine eigene Tochter heiraten und mit ihr die reinste Dynastie gründen, die je die Erde gesehen hat.
That's anybody who expects a civil trial in Saskatchewan, or I think across Canada. That's anybody. That's how bad it is. But so in the case of Miss R, this is really a civil rights case. You hear the words civil rights and you think, rightly, we shall overcome and stuff like that. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. Don't need no ticket, you just get on board. I'm singing in the middle of Friday afternoon. Somebody's in the office next door. I shouldn't be doing that. But anyway, so the point is this is a civil rights issue. So Miss R goes to a big retailer incorporated, has a couple of items paid for, a couple that she forgets to pay for, just like Marge Simpson in the famous Simpsons episode.
Oh dear, the alarm must be broken. If you could just move a bit to your left. 8'6". Oh, Sanjay, help Mrs. Simpson with her bag. And while you're at it, uske ko ate karaf deku. Haji, ekdam farafaspat. Mrs. Simpson, you did not pay for this bottle of Colonel Quickie Mart's Kentucky bourbon.
No, I guess I didn't.
And then big retailer decides to go all Sanjay on her. Sanjay and Apu, those are the two guys.
No offense, but we're putting that bitch on ice.
So I'm probably not supposed to do that accent. That's not socially appropriate anymore. Just let that be stricken from the record that I did that accent. So this is what happens to Miss R. They decide to go all Sanjay and Apu on her, and it's totally inappropriate. So the reason that happened is because big retailer Inc. Manufacturing Co., gigantic chemical corporation, this big conglomerate, they have a loss prevention division. The loss prevention division can't really do anything because it's obviously been instructed never to deal with any real bad guys who might use violence, right? Some organized crime member who's shoplifting things and reselling them for money, which retailers are dealing with all over the place. the real criminals, they can't actually try to stop those people because those people will maybe throw a punch. And the last thing that big retailer Inc. wants is a social media post of somebody throwing a punch, or even worse, the loss prevention guy throwing a punch back and knocking somebody out or killing somebody, because stuff can happen. So they have this loss prevention division. It's like having a cat, but forbidding the cat from chasing rats, which is what you really want the cat to do. So the cat's going to go nuts and eventually try to attack a songbird, which is what happened in the case of Miss R. A harmless songbird just whistling around and gets caught by this cat, who's not really not a bad person, but just totally misused. I mean, you want somebody like that dealing with the actual criminals. But anyway, the result is false imprisonment, and it's like a textbook. It's the most textbook case that I would think. But of course, I'm not a lawyer, not anymore. But it's the most textbook case of false imprisonment you would ever see. And then the cherry on top is that the cops arrive and then they trample all over Miss R's charter rights. So you've got a double lawsuit there, but then you're Aguirre, okay? You have to understand this, is that even since I started in 2008, 2009, the way the system worked then was just, in essence, just the old switcheroo. You start up a civil lawsuit, everybody will tell you, oh, you need a lawyer. You need legal advice for this. You can't do this yourself, which I guess is true. But so they make you spend all your life savings and more getting this legal advice, somebody to shepherd you through all the curlicues of the bureaucracy. So there's all these meetings and paperwork disclosures and questionings and phone calls and conferences that you're going to have to do before you ever get anywhere near a trial. And you're supposed to have a lawyer for all of those. But the one thing you really, 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 really need a lawyer for is your trial, which the system really doesn't want to give to you. So it's funny how they'll tell you you have to have a lawyer for going through the maze of bureaucracy for 4 or 5 years, or even worse. Like, it can easily get more than 4 or 5 years. So you need a lawyer to lead you through that hedge maze like Jack Nicholson in The Shining and hope you don't freeze to death. The old switcheroo comes at the pre-trial. That's supposed to be your last step before you get to trial, once you've been through 5, 6, 7 years of meetings and things, disclosures. You get to that pre-trial, and the judge dispenses legal advice. It's part of the judge's job. It's explicitly stated. They'll call it, facilitating resolution or offering guidance or giving an non-binding opinion, things like that. But the judge gives you legal advice. And almost by definition, it's not going to coincide with what your lawyer's telling you. It isn't. So that's the old switcheroo, is they make you pay all your money for legal advice to take you for what you think is going to be that trial. I really need my lawyer for this trial. And then at the pre-trial, they tell you, no, you don't want a trial. What you've spent your money on for the last 5 years, no, you don't. I'll just give you advice. I'm the judge. I'll just tell you what the best advice is. You take my advice, you sign here, and the judge leaves. The judge's fingerprints are nowhere on what's been done. So that's the old switcheroo. That's how it always was from when I started in 2008, 2009. Then things started getting so bad because the system at the beginning of my career was just set up to not resolve disputes. But then something seemed to break around COVID or after COVID, where it became now, some people are demanding resolutions to disputes. So what happens if you have a system that really, really isn't set up? All the fair dispute resolution mechanisms have been disabled because those all involve actual court time, actual cross-examination of witnesses. Seeing people eyeball to eyeball in a courtroom with somebody under oath. That's what you really need your lawyers for. But those have all been sort of disabled. So there were all these other things that people started using, like contempt applications, summary judgment applications, more technical ways of trying to win a case rather than winning it at trial. And then those are a whole lot easier to fake and rig because they're done in chambers where there's no record of it. There's no transcript, there's no recording, or they're done in a pretrial room where the whole thing is closed. So that's what you're walking into, Miss R. And so, Arthur can help, but you need to know that you're walking into this. It's a system that, say in 2008, was just designed not to work. And then sometime around 2020 or thereabouts, some bad people, just a few of them, but they figured out how to take some elements of those systems and that system designed not to work and make it work, but in a way that is pretty scary and awful. But forewarned is forearmed. So the way I would frame the action is like this. The system's an adversarial system, meaning Miss R and Giant Retailer Corporation, they're supposed to be adversaries. They're supposed to be doing this. And on paper, you have to be. But really, you're two different parties that have been failed by the court. And so the adversarial system is designed not to have you look at how badly the court is doing everything. But I would even make this ethos, what I'm saying here, part of the philosophy of the legal action. If we do a legal action, and I would be happy to, I think it would be really, really fun to be involved in. Of course, I can't go to court and argue it like I was a lawyer, but I can be in the background. I can be lurking in the shadows in some way. The way I would love to frame the action is, on paper, Miss R and Giant Retailer Corporation are adversaries, but really they're two people who've been let down by the court, because the same court that denies Miss R her civil rights are only exercisable and realizable through a civil trial. That's the only way you can do it. That's why we have the tort of false imprisonment. Because if your civil rights get violated and a shopkeeper imprisons you falsely for a whole evening, which is not allowed, it's bloody not good, okay, you can exercise and claim your civil rights by going to civil trial, but that's been effectively abolished. So Ms. R has been let down by the system, but then that same lousy system, that same lousy legal system that has failed Ms. R has also in a way failed Giant Retailer Corporation, because it's so slow and inefficient in dealing with real criminals. It's the same courthouse, same court system. Not always exactly the same building, but it's the same system that's dealing with civil rights and criminal trials. And so they're failing probably just as badly on the criminal side, although I was more of a civil lawyer. So I would make the lawsuit, it's adversarial on paper, but really we're all in this together against a failed system. So don't save all your hate, really, for the Giant Retailer Corporation. Yeah, they screwed up. Absolutely, people screw up. Like when you're in business, you are going to screw up once in a while. But ideally, perfect world, what I would say is that this is a lawsuit where $1 is claimed. $1 in damages is claimed. Because we know the system is absolutely not set up to get you any money in damages. This is not like you see on TV. Back in the 90s, we always used to hear about cases involving people suing because, I spilled the McDonald's coffee on my lap and I got $18 bazillion. That really doesn't happen in Saskatchewan, and nobody who's in charge wants it to happen. So if the lawsuit claimed $1, but just wanted a declaration that you had been falsely imprisoned, I think you were, but I'm not a lawyer, that you had been falsely imprisoned, and if you want to throw the cherry on top, that you had your Section 8 and 9 charter rights totally trampled on by the Corp, that's actually probably a really good, this is just the opinion of a layperson, I'm not a lawyer anymore, claim $1 in damages, because that limits your exposure. The system's going to want you to give up. And if you make it to trial, the system's going to want you to lose, because they don't want to be in the business of helping plaintiffs, because the supply of plaintiffs could be so huge. So if you claimed $1 in damages, just a declaration that you had been falsely imprisoned, $1 in damages, I think that would be a dignified thing to do. I would love to do that. As a lawyer, you would say pro bono, but I'm not a lawyer, but just for free on spec, like for the publicity. And everybody would benefit. The Giant Retail Corporation, they would get guidance saying, no, you actually can't. You actually can't lock somebody up for a whole evening and take away their meds and take away their food and take away their phone and take away their personal possessions, take away their ability to talk to their family. Evil and wrong, you can't do that. But it's really about making it a better country rather than getting money from SR, because that's never going to happen anyway. The system is not going to let that happen, in my sad, pessimistic estimation. But there we go. So because John said do more video, there's a little video.